Alright, how is going there today? Now, it's time for another rainy day drawing. So, the one I'm going to share with you today is all about apples. She'll be apples, mate. Anyway, don't worry too much. It's a relatively easy drawing to do if you just follow along. The video will pause every now and then or give you an instruction to pause. You stop there and do the drawing. Then you can watch how I do the next bit and then stop it and do it again. It should be pretty straightforward and easy for you. Every now and then I might mention something about a course or modules or other things. Don't worry about all that. Just focus on the drawing, have a good time, and I hope that you have a good, successful drawing here. Anyway, let's get on with it.
I have chosen a photo of two apples that I originally took with students in mind. The apple has a great mix of simplicity in the shape and interesting details in the skin. As always, I've broken the process down into easy steps and will give you all the information you need to complete this drawing. She'll be apples is an old Australian saying. It means that everything will be all right. Once you finish this drawing, you'll be all right too, and you'll be ready for the final drawing of the module. Start with a vertical line down the middle of the page. This line will help find the placement of the apples on the page. Next, draw a square off the left side of the line, just below the middle of the page, and this square will contain the left apple. On the right side of the line, draw another square. This will be slightly above the middle of the page and will overlap the first square by a small amount, and this square will contain the second apple. If they are in the right place, you can draw a diagonal line from the bottom left corner of the left square through to the top right corner of the right square and stay inside both squares all the way. In the left square, draw in the shape of the apple. This apple is more of a classic apple shape and has a wider top and a narrower base. Watch the demonstration carefully to see the shape. A good way to see if you've drawn the shape correctly is to check the space between the side of the apple and the square. Repeat the process with the second apple. This one has more of a cylinder shape and there is less difference in size between the top and the bottom. The right apple will be slightly behind the left one, and this will create an overlapping effect. Once you've drawn the apple shapes, add in a stem at the top of each one. The apple on the right has a vertical stem and the one on the left is more diagonal. Both stems are slightly curving in keeping with the organic shapes of the fruit. Now the shapes are in, it's time for a clean-up. Grab your trusty eraser and remove all the lines that aren't part of the apples. What happened to the two apple trees that were planted together? They lived happily ever after. Starting with the right-hand apple, draw in some lines around the top left side. Think about the shape of the apple as you draw. The lines will follow the contour of the form of the apple, slightly flat at the top and then curving sharply and descending to near horizontal down the side. These lines indicate darker sections visible in the skin, but are a great tool to describe the form of the object that you are drawing. Watch the demonstration carefully. Draw the shapes that you can see onto the apple. They don't have to be exact, but these are the areas where the highest values will be in the drawing, and drawing them in now means that we won't accidentally cover them up. You will notice in the demonstration that I've moved the side of the apple over slightly. It's quite normal to notice small differences as you draw in some of the details. At the early stage of the drawing, it's still easy to move things around and make adjustments until everything is correct. Repeat the process on the left-hand apple. Draw in the lines on the skin. Don't draw these perfectly. If you look closely at an apple, you will notice the skin markings are often erratic and don't follow a smooth straight line. Mark in the highlight areas again. These are the spots where light is reflecting on the shiny surface of the skin. This is one of the things that makes apples interesting to draw. There is a nice variety of different values and shapes to draw. Even though the apple shape is quite simple, there are other complex things going on that provide a lot of interest. Finish off by adjusting the right side of the apple by straightening out the line a little bit. Add some lines to the left side of the right apple. With curving objects, the shadows will curl around the sides. Think of where the light hits the apple. The shape of the apple will create the shape of the shadow. The position of the light will dictate where the shadow falls and whether it is long or short. In the demonstration, you will see that I've drawn in a circular shape under and to the left of each apple. We've already drawn in the highlight sections where the light hits the apple towards the right side, and so the shadows must be on the left. Pay attention to this in your drawings. This is one of the things that really helps create the feeling of a solid form. Draw a line just under the left apple and then extend it down vertically towards the bottom of the page. Draw the additional lines you can see in the demonstration. These indicate folds in the cloth that the apples are sitting on. Drawing folds in cloth is a way of creating implied forms. A cloth draped over an object will conceal it, but will also show the shape and the size of the object, where the cloth bends and the light and the shadows indicate form. Complete this part of the drawing by roughly drawing in some diagonal lines to indicate that the apples are sitting on an object. This is one of the ways of creating space in your drawing. More on this in the next module. Now return to the apples and add in some additional lines to indicate the skin markings. The apple on the left has more of them and is overall a lower value than the one on the right. Don't agonise over these. It's okay to just enjoy making the marks and observing what the pencil can do. Take the 2B pencil now. In this drawing, we're going to add a dark background. Start with the pencil and just pressing lightly shade the entire space at the top of the drawing with some hatching. The goal of this is to arrive at a reasonably consistent mid-value across the entire top half of the page. Work with long strokes and hold the pencil as flat as possible without dragging the wood across the paper. When you get closer to the apples or the surface they are sitting on, slow down and use small, controlled motions to fill in the gaps. In all the previous drawings we have done, the background has been left a very high value with only vague details drawn in. This type of background leaves a very light and airy feeling to the drawing. It gives a sense of being outside and having plenty of light. Today we will use a dark background and it will leave the drawing feeling more contained and closed in. This is in keeping with the theme of the apples on a surface, and it's something that you are more likely to see inside. Take a moment to sharpen up the top of the apple that is now getting lost in the background shading. Make sure that you haven't lost the shape or the stem. Continue on with the shading and you can now cross the hatching with more horizontal hatching and continue building up all of the sections until they have the same value. Take care as you work your way around the objects. Keep your lines neat and avoid crossing over. It's okay to use a few different directions to fill in the small gaps around the edge of things. Take your time and make sure the entire surface of the page is covered and that no white remains visible. It's okay if the shading is not perfectly consistent, but just do your best and try to achieve the same value all over. Now shade the surface the apples are sitting on. Use a diagonal hatching for this around the top of the surface and change to a vertical hatching for the sides where the cloth hangs down. Take your time on this and really take care with the edges. The final value will be higher than the background and you just really want to remove all of the white of the paper. The reason for this is because the white of the paper is the highest value we can achieve with this drawing and we want to use it sparingly so it stands out. Lightly shade the left apple. In the demonstration, I've used some hatching that follows the direction of the contour lines of the surface. This reinforces the contours of the apple and enhances the appearance of form. Cover the entire apple except for the area that you've already drawn in for highlights and the section along the very top. Add some darker lines to the stem and the edge of the hollow section to make them stand out. Move to the right-hand apple and reinforce the shadow area on the left edge and under the apple. Make these a similar value to the background. In the demonstration, you will notice I add some shading to the surface the apple is sitting on. By this stage in the drawing, I'm looking for and noticing areas where the value is too high, and then I will put in some shading to balance those areas. Lowering the value will push that area back. Raising the value will pull it forwards. Return to the right-hand apple and lightly shade the surface just like you did with the left-hand apple. Once again, avoid the areas where you've drawn the highlights as these will remain blank. Add some lines around the hollow section at the top and add some definition to the stem. Watch the demonstration closely and notice that the lines in the hollow will all point towards the centre. This helps create the appearance of the negative form of the hollow. Return to the shadow under the left-hand apple and lower the value. Once again, this should be similar to the value used in the background. For these shadows, you could cross the hatching any way you like or use a circular motion if you prefer. Move to the right-hand apple and begin adding stippling to the surface. Use a combination of dots and very short strokes to create this. Take note that in the demonstration I build up areas where there are many dots and leave some sections where there are only a few. This is to suggest both the appearance of dots in the skin of the apple and also is a way of adding shading to the apple. The surface of a shiny object will reflect light and also shadows. These are more complex to draw than an object that only has its own shadow to deal with. I'm not going into it today, but some artists enjoy putting fun details into reflections in their paintings. Add some additional lines to shade the areas around the bottom and the side of the apple. If your shadow is too light, now is a good time to make it darker. Repeat the process on the left-hand apple. In the demonstration, I'm using more lines than dots on this one. As I mentioned earlier, this apple has a lower value than the apple on the right. Work your way over the apple. Where the light hits the top will be lighter, and lower down will be darker. As you go, sharpen up any edges that are getting lost. Use a sharp pencil for this. Look closely at your apples and their shadows. Do they look like a pear? Do they look like they have a generally round shape? Remembering that lighter means forward and darker means backwards. Adjust them until you are happy. Finally, return to the surface the apples are sitting on. Add some more shading to this to lower the value. This doesn't have to be perfect. It's a good opportunity for you to see how changing the value on the fore and the midground changes the appearance of the apples. Once you've lowered the value on this area, the apples become crisper and more prominent in the drawing. This is because they are now the main area of the drawing that has strong contrast between light and dark. This draws the viewer's attention and creates a sense of drama. The drama is heightened by the strong diagonal shape of the surface that the apples are sitting on. If we had simply drawn a horizontal line across the drawing as a surface, then the drawing would be stable and calm. The diagonals and closed-in background heighten our sense that something might happen or that things are not permanent, changes in the air. If that seems like too much to take in, then simply sign your drawing because you are done. Well done! That is another drawing done and dusted. You should pat yourself on the back because you've just created an interesting and dynamic still life that has energy and drama in it. You've used lines to draw shapes, and that has allowed you to draw forms. You've even used contour lines and several different shading techniques to make the forms three-dimensional. You've created negative forms in the hollows at the top of the apples where the stems come out, as well as implied forms under the cloth that the apples are sitting on. And that's a pretty good day's work in my eyes. You are definitely ready now for the final drawing in the module. So thanks for watching and see you in the next lesson.
Okay, how did you go? Did you have a win there? Either way, if you just enjoyed the video or if you did a drawing, if you gave me a like, I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know below in the comments if you have anything you would like to say. and I'll see you in the next one. See ya. Bye.